interviews, Wiles gives candid answers about the president, his term so far, as well as many of those in and around his administration. Wiles told the author, Chris Whipple, quote, Trump has an alcoholic's personality. Wiles also says that J.D. Vance's conversion from never Trumper to MAGA acolyte has been, quote, sort of political. The vice president,
remember, Susie Wiles is the White House chief of staff. So, you know, if you don't know who she is, this is Susie Wiles, White House chief of staff, as American government official, political consultant, and lobbyist. Yeah, lobbyist. And that's the concerning part. That's the real concerning part right there with Susie Wiles. I mean, we can get into like a damn near an hour-long video, and I can go into a whole rant on how much I do not trust or like this woman, but we'll save that for another time.
Has been a conspiracy theorist for a decade. Russell Vought, architect of the Notorious Project 2025 and the head of the Office of Management and Budget, is a, quote, right-wing absolute zealot.
And guys, let's not forget to double tap that screen and like the video, guys. Let's get more people on the conversation by double tapping that screen. Appreciate the support.
And when asked what she thought of Elon Musk reposting a tweet about public sector workers killing millions under Hitler, Stalin, and Mao, Wiles replied, I think that's when he's microdosing, referring to the drug ketamine. Wiles added she doesn't have firsthand knowledge of that. The chief of staff was also deeply critical of Attorney General Pam Bondi for her handling of the Epstein files. Wiles said this, I think she completely whiffed on appreciating that very targeted group that cared about this. Wiles continued, first she gave them binders full of nothingness, and then she said that the witness list or the client list was on her desk. There is no client list, and it sure as hell wasn't on her desk.
I mean, we can all agree to that one, that she definitely completely blew the Epstein files. And then, like, let's be real, if you didn't have anything to reveal, don't say anything. Just say that, yo, we don't got nothing yet, but we're investigating it. Not hype everybody up for a big letdown and not make a whole bunch of social media influencers look like complete idiots.
Whipple writes that he asked Wiles back in March if she ever went to President Trump and told him that this term is not supposed to be a retribution tour. Yes, I do, she replied. We have a loose agreement that the score settling will end before the first 90 days are over. Whipple asked Wiles again in late August, far beyond those 90 days. Wiles responds this way, quote, I don't think he's on a retribution tour, she said. A governing principle for him is, I don't want what happened to me to happen to somebody else. And so people that have done bad things need to get out of the government. In some cases, it may look like retribution. And there may be an element of that from time to time. Who would blame him? Not me. When Whipple pressed Wiles about accusing New York Attorney General Letitia James of mortgage fraud, Trump did that, Wiles responded this way, well, that might be the one retribution. And when asked if she's called out the president on that, Wiles said, no, not on her, not on her. She had $500 million of his money. Wiles went on to laugh. Peter Baker, we're sort of breathless. We're all kind of dizzy from reading this morning. You got an early look at the Vanity Fair piece and wrote about it for the Times, which has been ricocheting across social media in the last hour or so. There's so many things to dive into here, including Wiles like putting the cards on the table in terms of Venezuela and what they're trying to do there, saying that indeed Trump is simply trying to pressure with these boat attacks, trying to pressure Maduro to step down. Talk about that and other things that really jumped out to you.
Bruh.
Yeah, she said this is all about getting Maduro to cry uncle. And she also said that if Trump goes for land strikes, which he's been talking about lately, that he would have to go to Congress for authorization. That's a really interesting concession because I haven't heard White House say up until now that they needed Congress for anything when it comes to this undeclared war.
I mean, come on now. It just goes without saying. Like, it goes without saying that he would need Congress for land strikes. Like, we kind of all knew that one. But to strike these boats in the Caribbean Sea, I mean, nope, not really, especially since they're considered a terrorist organization. But the strike on land, especially, you know, since everybody in Venezuela is not a narco terrorist, yeah, you can't do that.
on Venezuela and drug smuggling and so on. So that's an important point. It's a fascinating series of interviews. You know, she obviously came to relax in her conversations with Chris Whipple. Chris wrote the book on White House chiefs of staff, and therefore I think she looked at these conversations as part of, you know, setting the history of her time as chief of staff. In some ways, she's been the most successful of Trump's chief of staff, one that he actually seemed to trust. She didn't view her job. She doesn't view her job like John Kelly did. John Kelly viewed his job as somebody who threw his body in front of the train as it headed down to places that he thought were reckless or unwise or illegal. That's not how Susie Wiles looks at her job. She looks at her job as facilitating the Trump's agenda, things he wants to do, even if she thinks he's gone too far. And she talks in the article about times when she urged him to do things he didn't, like not to pardon all of the most violent January 6th rioters, to wait on tariffs until there was agreement on his team, and so on and so forth. But she says, hey, you know, when there's a tie, he wins.
Yeah, I mean, J-Mart, it's pretty stunning stuff, and we have to, you know, wonder what the reaction will be from the Oval Office.
Right.
Other places in the White House, we know Trump 1.0 was really marked by a lot of staff turnover. President Trump, you know, has really prided.
And yeah, and word on Washington D.C. streets is that Dan Bongino, he might be resigning from deputy director, or I think that's the title, deputy director of the FBI. So yeah, he might be stepping down soon. This is one of the reasons why we haven't heard from this man like in a while. We haven't heard from this man since he said, well, oh yeah, Epstein didn't kill himself. After that, like, the man damn near went into hiding. But all right, now let's get into what CNN got to say about Susie Wiles as well, because what she said in that new Vanity Fair interview, I mean, like, bro, what was she, drunk?
This just in, a revealing new interview with really the most powerful
But I mean, hey, she's honest.
Person in President Trump's White House beyond him. Chief of Staff Susie Wiles commenting and going there on a wide range of topics, it seems, with Vanity Fair in a new series of interviews, from the handling of the Epstein investigation to her assessment of the big names on Donald Trump's team. Let's get to CNN's Elena Treen, who is at the White House. There seems to be a lot in there, Elena. What is your big takeaway?
I mean, look, I've covered the president, and I've also covered Susie Wiles for years now, Kate, and this is one of the most candid interviews and stories that she's offered really from the entire time I've done that. This is incredibly candid, some of the things that she was admitting, because I will tell you too, Wiles is someone who often likes to operate kind of in the shadows and quietly. She doesn't like to draw attention to herself. And that's why I think some of what people are waking up and reading this morning is so stunning to hear about. But let me get into some of the main things that I found very notable from what Chris Whipple, who works with Vanity Fair, detailed from their conversations. One is that Wiles referred to President Trump as someone having a, quote, alcoholic personality. She also talked a lot about the vice president, J.D. Vance, someone who I should note, had this conversion that Whipple noted as well, from never Trumper to a MAGA acolyte. Susie Wiles essentially said that change, that conversion, has been, quote, sort of political. And she said the vice president has been a, quote, conspiracy theorist for a decade. She also talked about Russell Vought. He is the White House budget chief, but he's also, of course, one of the architects of that notorious Project 2025 conservative blueprint for the future of the Republican Party, something that Trump had previously, of course, disavowed. She argued that Vought is, quote, a right-wing absolute zealot. And then she also went to a number of different things. One, she talked about Pam Bondi, the attorney general, someone who was one of her closest friends, I should note, in this administration.
No, she's just letting loose on everybody. Like I said, what was she, drunk or something? She was just letting loose on everybody on Vanity Fair, as if this wasn't going to get out to the rest of the administration. Like, this is going to be a awkward moment walking into the White House for Susie Wiles. Like I said, I don't know. Maybe they called her like with a couple in her. That's all I could say. But shout out to O for sending in the $1. Ain't had too much to say. Just want to show some support. Appreciate the support, sis. And shout out to O. Let me go ahead and give you that shout out. Guys, let's not forget to double tap that screen, like the video. Let's get more people in the conversation by double tapping that screen. If you have any questions, comments, jokes, or disagreements, I'll be happy to read it out loud. Just go ahead and send in $2 and up, and I'll be happy to get engaged with it. But all right, let's get right back to it with Susie Wiles.
She argued that Bondi, quote, completely whiffed the handling of the Epstein file. She also talked about how the president, who came in and offered a series of pardons to really roughly 1,000 people who were convicted for their crimes on January 6th, she essentially admitted that she had urged the president not to pardon those who had committed violent crimes on January 6th and on the Capitol attack. She also talked about how she disagreed with him sometimes when it came to tariffs, saying that she had urged him to delay some of the tariffs that he
she's
announced.
Hey, no. I'm actually happy this came out. No, I'm happy because I never trusted this lady, bro. I never trusted her since the day she was announced. I was like, fuck. Susie Wiles of all people, fuck. But oh no, please. If this Trump, he needs to kick her out for this. This is like the ultimate betrayal. If Marjorie Taylor Greene's a traitor for what she was doing, then oh yeah, Susie Wiles is a traitor for this. Like, no. They better not be playing favorites. I know that. There better be no favorites being played, because this would be considered a betrayal. Like, you just went on Vanity Fair and aired out the administration, including the president. And like I said, I don't know if they caught you lacking with a couple shots in you, but yeah, she was going crazy.
And it goes on. There's a lot of other areas where she kind of talks about kind of disagreeing with him, but
she was being real though. Like, shout out to my man Gaming. He said, yeah, well, Bondi did whiff. Like, and she did.
So ultimately, her role is as a facilitator rather than, past White House chiefs that we've seen, notably people like John Kelly during the president's first administration, who at times tried to hold him back. She sees as her job trying to kind of shape what he does, but also not preventing him from doing what he wants to do. One very notable quote as well that stuck out to me, just given the context of what's very much in the news right now, is Venezuela. She admitted publicly that one of the goals of this administration and the president is actually to see regime change in Venezuela and oust Nicolas Maduro. I should note that is not what the White House line has been on this. The White House line has been that this is all about trying to crack down on narco terrorists and illegal drug trafficking. She essentially said this on Venezuela. She said, quote, "He wants to keep on blowing boats up until Maduro cries uncle. And people way smarter than me on that say that he will." Again, a major contradiction in what we've heard from the White House on all of this. And the last thing I just want to quickly point you to, there's a lot in this. I do encourage our audience to actually.
Bro, I'm sorry, but like, this is a little too much. There's no way she sat down, like, knowingly saying this. Like, you sat down with Vanity Fair and just aired out the entire administration. Like, are you sure somebody like your friend didn't betray you? I don't know. This is a lot. This is chief of staff. They're basically the right-hand man. I mean, right-hand woman to Trump. Like, the one that gives them a lot of advisory, the one he runs things past to, getting a second opinion. And this is what she's saying? Oh, yeah, this is crazy. This is crazy. Crazy hilarious, though. I'm not going to lie. Keep it going. Keep cooking.
To go and read these very lengthy and detailed articles from Vanity Fair. But she talked about retribution, and she said that she had some sort of agreement with the president that she didn't want him to be focused on score settling, that she was going to give him 90 days and then he kind of had to move on from it. But she also acknowledged that some of the recent indictments we've seen against some of the president's political foes, people like the former FBI director James Comey or the New York Attorney General Letitia James, both people who we've seen this Trump administration now bring indictments.
And now I get what y'all saying. Like, S.E.T, come on now, it's CNN. You know CNN is going to take any opportunity to talk shit about Susie Wiles or anybody in Trump's administration. And you're right. So let's go to a more independent media. Shout out to our guys over here at Redacted. And this video, just to point this out, this video came out like 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago is when I found this out. Actually, I've been knew about Susie Wiles before this video, but I didn't know how deep she was involved in the deep state until this. So let's get right into it with Redacted. Yeah, the wheels are falling off of the Trump administration, and Susie Wiles is to blame. As you can see, I mean, hey, they said it 2 weeks ago. And I guess CNN and MS Now is now catching up on it. Susie Wiles is probably the most toxic official in Trump's administration. And you thought Casper telling Pam Bondi was. No. It's actually her.
Gate. Our next guest says Susie Wiles might be the most destructive force inside the Trump administration. Gatekeeping, preventing MAGA from becoming America first, from actually carrying out the mission of making America great again. And is the Bush administration, the old Bush administration acolytes, still running things, but inside the Trump administration like a Trojan horse? We're going to get into it today with Noel Frisch. He's the founder and publisher of the National File. He has been researching Susie Wiles, perhaps more than anyone else, and says that she is arguably the most destructive force inside the Trump administration. He has a new piece he's just written, just out, called The Wiles House. Former China lobbyist Susie Wiles continues her reign of terror inside the Trump White House. So who is Susie Wiles, and why is she so destructive in destroying the Make America Great Again movement? Noel joins us now. Noel, great to have you here on the show.
Thanks for having me, Clayton.
Man, you're a brave man. And I know that you receive phone calls from Susie Wiles on a regular basis complaining about your coverage. Thank you for what you're doing here and exposing this.
Yep. So our coverage on Susie's involvement in and around Trump world goes back to 2018 when the project that's now known as National File was largely at Big League Politics, which was another upstart pro-Trump America First publication that did some yeoman's work with Patrick Howley. And Patrick Howley's work should be recognized, no question. He's a legend and a weapon for America First. So back in 2018, we went up with a story all about how, if everyone remembers, Zinke and Pruitt had a heck of a time at Department of Interior and EPA. As soon as the Trump administration started, you know well that the liberal press, their goal every day when they wake up, Clayton, and you're an insider, you know how this works. They set their own narratives. Their goal every day was basically the headline that reads, "Chaos in the Trump administration." And they set to work writing those headlines every day, didn't they? And a big part of that was with EPA and with Interior. And there were leakers inside of the administration. And so we broke a story about how Caroline Wiles, daughter to Susie Wiles, was the big leaker, helping to create a bunch of the chaos in those two particular agencies. And eventually I got a phone call from Susie Wiles, and she asked me to take it off of the internet. And I did. And I didn't I'm an amateur horse trader, Clayton. I'm not very good at this, I suppose. I didn't get anything in return. I'm a DC dilettante, I suppose, or amateur. So I took it down as a favor for her and for a friend that asked me to take it down. And it's been down for since, I don't know, middle of 2018 or so. And then it just got to the point where we know too much about her involvement as a lobbyist, her involvement with Ballard Partners, which is like the biggest lobby firm now, sort of just raking in the cash during the Trump years, just getting paid hand over fist by corporate America, the big corporates, big tech, big oil, like everybody, foreign countries. Then she moved over to Mercury Public Affairs, which is even worse. It's like one of the longest standing big lobby firms in DC. If you go back and look at the Wayback Machine of Mercury Public Affairs websites, it's literally like Barack Obama Central. And then she went in on the same day, she went in as a leader at Mercury Public Affairs, I think the co-director at Mercury Public Affairs with the top federal lobbyist from Pfizer. And so we at National File broke that story in 2022.
Wait, what?
As you know, Clayton, it's not very popular to hold MAGA world personalities to account. And so that sort of bubbled around the internet, and it finally, it was in COVID. And so Pfizer, of course, not being very popular, that news finally bubbled up into the sort of the zeitgeist, and people started taking notice that, hey, maybe this Susie Wiles person is a little bit of a problem. Her record personally goes way back to Jack Kemp and the Bushes and the Department of Labor. As you know, Clayton, labor is one of those very interesting spaces in terms of regulatory affairs inside of DC, having to do with, of course, the mafia, mob, big labor, the unions, all kinds of things. And then so it's funny now that a guy from northeastern Pennsylvania called La Savita is now very closely tied in with Susie. And these are the people in charge of the Republican Party now. And it is a shakedown. That's what it is. It's a shakedown. If you want access, it's pay to play. And boy, are they paying. There are people getting really, really rich based on access to the Trump administration. So the corporates are buying it. Corporates are buying our country, and people like Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita are the ones selling us out.
So I want to get into her backstory, her details, and a lot of what you report over the years. But maybe we can just, at a high level, talk about how she has been destructive for the Trump administration. I should say about 2 weeks ago, we covered deeply here on the show about Susie Wiles. And after that story was published and it kind of went viral, the next day, RFK Jr. came out and published a tweet. I mean, to me, it clearly looked like Susie Wiles had asked him to publish this tweet. But anyway, we don't know exactly. But he published a tweet defending Susie Wiles because our point was that Susie Wiles was destroying the MAHA movement and, you know, the cushy relationship with Big Pharma and everything that RFK Jr. stood against. He's now sort of being forced, it seems, by Susie Wiles to support. Anyway,
that's the problem. Susie Wiles adds the corporate agenda to the administration. That's why I consider her part of the deep state. It's like, so yeah, when so when RFK Jr., when he wants to go ahead and, you know, make America healthy again, take all the chemicals out the food, here comes Susie Wiles going like, okay, look, bro, I know you have all this ambition, but the food lobbyists are on my ass, okay, man, and we can't do everything you want to do. We can do half of it, but we can't do everything. Oh yeah, and Big Pharma and your whole thing about the vaccines, yeah, we might have to axe that as well because you know, they're on my ass. So anytime somebody want to do something good, she's right behind them with the corporate agenda to kind of, well, stifle it or just kill what they're trying to do altogether.
Out with a tweet saying she's been great for MAHA and all. It looked like she clearly called him and asked him to do that. Anyway, I tweeted and said, it looks like we're over the target because this came literally a few hours after our report had aired. So there seems to be some feathers being ruffled inside this administration, but maybe you can explain what she does and how she's destroying the MAGA movement and the Trump administration.
So she's got like an army of gatekeepers, and Stephanie, her last name escapes me right now, is one of those gatekeepers though over there at HHS and FDA. People like, Jim O'Neill got hired on immediately, like really close ties with Peter Thiel and Palantir, and just a super sketchy guy. As soon as O'Neill was hired to see when you.
That's just a little 10-minute introduction to that video. If you want to learn a little bit more, you can go over to Redacted. Probably just search up Susie Wiles is to blame on their channel. You'll be able to find this video. But all right, now let's keep it going. Now that we heard enough about Susie Wiles and all of her corporate ties, this is one of the reasons why I can't trust her.